Randomness. It's what makes card games so interesting to play. The simple act of shuffling and drawing cards creates unpredictable outcomes, providing a unique and exciting experience every time. But what happens when this randomness becomes a detriment to the game? And how do you deal with that? Being able to address this issue can often mean the difference between a good card game and a bad one. Even the most popular games aren't immune to these pitfalls. Take Magic the Gathering, for example, one of the most popular trading card games of all time. It's not uncommon to find yourself drawing nothing but lands, or conversely, having no lands at all, leaving you with a unplayable hand. On the flip side, randomness can swing in the opposite direction too, drawing an incredible hand, leading you to completely dominate your opponents. While it's certainly fun for the player with the winning hand, it can be less enjoyable for everyone else at the table. So let me tell you how I counteracted it while working on my own game, and the battle I fought against inconsistency. In my game, players compete against the Old God, a collection of cards that present various challenges. Unfortunately, the balance of this deck was wildly unpredictable, often either leading to completely overwhelming the players, or failing to be a challenge at all, making the game unenjoyable either way. But I'm getting ahead of myself. For those of you who aren't familiar with my game, which, let's be honest, is probably most of you, you might be wondering what the heck an Old God is and what the game is actually as a whole. Or maybe you don't care. I don't know your life. I'm gonna talk about it anyway. So, in brief summary, here's how the game works. Armies Against Entropy is a cooperative resource management trading card game. Players place cards like heroes, structures, and lands to create synergies for themselves and also their allies. They then move units generated by their cards to enhance the power of the cards that they deem most necessary, all while battling the Old God, a deck of automated cards designed to dismantle the player's forces and serve as the main threat of the game. Now that you kind of have an understanding of the game, let's dive into how randomness became a problem. As I said before, the Old God deck was designed to present various challenges. This deck featured a large number of weaker cards and a few stronger ones. In theory, this meant the players would face a constant onslaught of minor threats, while occasionally encountering some much more intimidating ones. Let's talk a little more specifically though. Typically, the Old God would draw around 3 cards per turn with a total deck of 86 cards, 10 endlings in the deck as the weakest card. This design meant you were much less likely to draw something threatening like 3 Ravengers. The idea is that the Old God would have a nice assortment of cards due to its distribution. At least that's what I thought. However, there were many instances where this wasn't the case, and the Old God either felt pitiful or, conversely, an unstoppable onslaught of destruction. Speaking of unstoppable onslaughts of destruction, you should subscribe. I don't know how those two things correlate, but So what was the solution? Well, this came to me while I was trying to fix an entirely different problem, and that problem was the Abyssal Horde card. This card was a hell of my own making, and the bane of my existence for so many different reasons. But the main one that we'll be focusing on today was trying to solve an issue where it would gain in power every attack. Units were how the player gained power, but we didn't really want a similar mechanic for the Old God because we didn't really want to figure out how these units would be allocated each turn. The Abyssal Horde was somewhat of an exception to this rule, as it stole units from player cards. While this is a cool idea, it kind of fundamentally broke the game. Instead, we wanted to find another way for this card to gain in power using a different mechanic, while still sort of keeping the same identity. We had considered making the Abyssal Horde card duplicate itself with every attack, which could work well. However, that mechanic felt a little more suited to a digital version of the game rather than a physical one. And while I do have aspirations to make a digital version of this game down the line, I really want to make this game more functional for both formats. So the solution was a drastic one. Remember the Endling I mentioned earlier, the weakest card in the deck? Well, we removed it from the main deck completely and put it in its own entirely new deck called the Minion deck. Are you kidding me? Did you ever consider how the Endling would feel about this? Being displaced from its home? What? No, it's a good thing. It helps. Wait, did you gain sentience? Yeah, what of it, Nathaniel? What? No, it's nothing. It's just, how? How? Oh, yeah, I don't know. I can also do this. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not sure whether I should be impressed or terrified. You should be afraid after what you did to those endlings. Oh, come on. You've literally read the script yourself. Like, you know what's going to happen. I just prefer to live in the moment, actually. So, whatever. Can I just keep reading? Fine, whatever. Okay, anyway, moving the endlings to its own deck allowed the Abyssal Horde to spawn these cards every time it attacked, enabling the Old God's forces to gain in power with each strike. But the best part about adding minions this way was it meant that it could be used in other applications as well, fixing the overarching problem of the game, allowing the endlings to be with all their other minion friends. All right, Nathaniel. Stop saying that like it's not your name too. Is it? Yeah, well, I think, yeah, I don't care. Let's just keep reading. Of course, the main one was addressing randomness in the game. By introducing a separate minion deck, the Old God could draw from both its main deck and the new deck, providing consistency in its challenges it presented to the player. If you're doing the math at home, the old system offered an approximate 20% chance of drawing a weaker card, like an Endling or Shade, from a main deck of 86 cards. In contrast, the dual deck system guarantees a weaker card is drawn every turn. This change also allowed me to reduce the number of copies in the main deck as well. Oh, see, now you've done it. First displacing the poor Endlings from their home, and now just murdering other cards. Dude, it's just a game. Not to me, Nathaniel. Not to me. But it helps to make the game better. Like, literally, just give me 2 seconds to, like, explain, please? Fine, whatever, just keep reading your dumb script. Reducing cards actually resulted in a greater variety of cards seen each game, with having fewer duplicates. As a result, players consistently faced interesting challenges drawn by the main deck, while still receiving a steady stream of minions every turn. Thanks to this newfound consistency, I could design Old God cards to be much scarier, incorporating much more powerful effects and interesting abilities. We could also change the Old God's Wasteland cards, which previously allowed the Old God to draw more cards from their main deck each turn. By shifting some of these cards to summon minions instead, we introduced a further layer of balance. While minions are weaker threats, they can accumulate and become overwhelming if left unchecked, serving as much better foil to a player's units than the Old God's other cards. Speaking of Wastelands, minions are also a great benefit because they ensure there's always something attacking the players, keeping up the pressure. Previously, the Old God could strictly draw Wastelands or Ruins, which, while challenging, gave the players an entire turn to prepare or react. Now, I'm not saying every game should implement this sort of system to improve consistency, but it worked incredibly well for Armies Against Entropy. So it's something worth considering if you're someone who is making your own game and you're facing similar problems. Of course, it comes with its own set of challenges. Primarily, it adds a layer of complexity that occasionally introduces new issues that need to be addressed. It could also bring too much consistency to a game if applied in the wrong context, which might remove some of the excitement and unpredictability that card games are known for in the first place. And lastly, it's not like this is a new concept? And lastly, it's not like this is an entirely new concept. It's essentially Magic the Gathering's token system, just applied in a slightly different manner to fit the mechanics of the game. So, you know, I'm not original. I don't know. What do you want from me? Despite that, this was really the right thing for the game, fixing the main problem with randomness while simultaneously solving a bunch of other problems and making it a much more engaging experience. Yeah, that's what you think. Are we gonna have a problem? I'm not sure. But I'm watching you, Nathaniel. Okay. If you are interested in playing Armies Against Entropy, be sure to check out my Discord server. I have a variety of ways to play the game, so there should be an option that works well for you. And if you do play, let me know what you think. I would love to hear your opinion. I'm always looking for more feedback on the game. If you'd like to support this project or any of the other ones I do, you can check out my Patreon. There's now beta access to Armies Against Entropy, where you can play with new cards before they're even released. Or if you're making your own game, you might be interested in these assets for game creation you can use. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.